Thank you.
If you could just take a seat,
Thank you.
we'll call you for the deputation. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Swan Valley Statutory Planning Committee meeting of Wednesday, the 13th of August 2025. To those attending in person and to those online, the meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing via the Commission's website and YouTube. Committee members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. And I'd like to open the meeting by acknowledging that we're meeting on the lands of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation and pay our respects to elders past and present. Apologies and leave of absence. Today we have all members attending in person, myself, Deputy Chairperson Ray Heron, Commissioner Helen Brooks, Member Sue Hurt and Member Charlie Zanino. Welcome all. And we have apologies on a leave of absence Member Franklin. Disclosures of interest. Members, I don't have any recorded so far, but do members have any interest that they wish to declare, or any disclosures of representation where you've been contacted by an applicant in relation to an item on the agenda today? Okay, thank you very much. Can all members please indicate that they've received and considered the agenda ahead of today's meeting? Thank you all. Confirmation of the minutes. They are the minutes of our previous meeting on Wednesday, the 4th of June, noting that we did not have a meeting last time due to lack of items. Any issues with the previous minutes from June? Any questions? Okay, happy to move the minutes. Thank you very much. Commissioner Heron is moving, seconded by Member Zanino. Any dissent? Thank you. The minutes are carried. So we do have deputations today, and I'll hand over to Sam to introduce our deputies. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Chair. And good morning, everyone that's present to make a deputation to the Swan Valley Statutory Planning Committee meeting this morning. You'll be invited to join the table to deliver your deputation if you're appearing in person today, or you'll be promoted to a panellist via Zoom to deliver your deputation. You have been advised of your allocated time this morning, which will be managed by a timer which will appear on the screen, which will count down that time. If you do have a PowerPoint presentation this morning, this will be displayed on the screen throughout your deputation, and you're requested to advise as you wish to advance the slides. Moving to the first deputation on the agenda this morning, which is on item 3.1 on the agenda, which is the Swan Valley Planning Number 1, Amendment Number 20. We're welcoming Alex Watson, Graham Fitch, Danelle Pretorius and Ray Bartel to the table. Thank you.
Welcome all to the meeting.
Good morning all. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. We're here to speak briefly in support of the officer's recommendation on item 3.1 and take any questions that the committee might have. The amendment's motivated by the urgent need to create a new entry and exit point for Swan Christian College, with the 6-hectare expansion land being sought to create a first instance space for related internal vehicle movements. The proposal has no effect on the agricultural productivity of the area and will be significantly beneficial to road safety and functionality of Great Northern Highway. And I'll hand over to Graham and Ray and Darnell to take us through some other key points on that.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us talk here. The traffic congestion on Great Northern Highway is someone who lived in the area all his life has actually gotten worse. Some mornings you can be traffic up 1-2 kilometres, especially when people are dropping off at the school. And it's caused major safety issues. The government has been looking at this area for quite a number of times. The RAC nominated it as the #1 black spot back in 2019. The new access road off Dale Road would alleviate a large proportion of the actual traffic issue on that side of things. The other major advantage of that would also solve the issue that what's been proposed with Eastlink would not have, and would have costed the government tens of millions of dollars. The other advantage of this is also EastLink's not proposed for many years, where this solution could be done within the next 12 to 18 months. And in relation to the viticulture side of things, as one of the oldest, been going for nearly 100 years in the valley and the largest vineyards in the valley, this represents less than 4% of our property. It's insignificant from that point of view. And to give you a bit of a breakdown of what is actually occurring, the economics of viticulture in the Swan Valley are quite dire. We have to move to what we call a low volume, high value product, predominantly because we do not have the water to start with. Because of climate change, the recharge has dropped by 80% in the last 50 years. And now we've just lost another 10% of our water at stage one, but they want to come back for more on that side of things. And you can't get the economies of scale to compete against these estates on Riverland doing commodity wine. We also have the problem of the issue that the type of varieties we grow in the Swan Valley, which are predominantly Verdelho, Chenin Blanc, big body Shirazes and fortifieds, the market actually doesn't even want, market demand has dropped significantly. The varieties that are demanded like Cabernet, Chardonnay, Semillon, and Sauvignon Blanc need a cool climate and they're more preferred in the southwest. In fact, like most wineries, more than half our fruit we do get from the southwest. And to give an idea, someone who's very committed to the valley on that, we're keeping vineyards that, as you drive into Nicola on the left-hand side, the Verdelho there, which is what we've been pulled out because there's literally no market. And to give you an idea, we're not getting any more for our fruit than we were 30 years ago. Now, if you're running a business and you're getting the same amount of money as 30 years ago, you go broke. But we're keeping Verdelho there, which there's no home for it. It's getting used for, to make gin and vodka. Darnell, sorry.
Well. Yep. So thank you, Graham. And I know our time is up, so I'll just advocate for the Swan Christian College. We're running a school that has been there now for 45 years. And the Great Northern Highway has significantly changed. So to get on and off the property is proving, although we've got good traffic flow on our property and run that well, we cannot get on and off the Great Northern Highway. This would give us a second entrance and exit point, which would alleviate traffic and keep our children safe who are now running across the highway to find their parents on the other side. So we would really appreciate a different entrance and exit to the college.
Thank you very much for your deputation today, but there will be opportunity for questions as well, so we can flesh out some matters that you might not have had an opportunity to cover, but we appreciate the information that you've provided. I will open to members, but I just wanted to start with one question, probably perhaps for you, Alex, in relation to the master plan that's been provided, noting that this is a scheme amendment, but it's there as a sort of indicative, example of what a plan of what's
supporting information. Yeah.
Supporting information. Thank you. So it does talk about a childcare centre, but your the scheme request is for a use for the educational establishment. I just wanted to get some clarity on that because the childcare use is a separate use under the scheme. So I just really wanted to explore your intention there.
Yeah, for sure. The childcare centre that's shown on the master plan is something that the college is investigating, and I think whether it would actually fall within the definition of a childcare centre relative to an educational establishment would depend on who is operating it and for whom.
Yeah.
The college's intention, as far as I understand, is to operate it themselves, would be to operate it themselves for generally siblings of the.
Yes, it would be predominantly pre-kindy.
Yep.
It would not be a standalone second centre.
Okay, so pre-kindy is part of the school's offering, not a commercial childcare separate to the school. Thank you, appreciate that.
For the educational establishment.
Thank you. Right. Okay, members' questions, go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, and thank you for the deputation. I will say, like, some of the points taken are understood. However, I trust it can be appreciated that the whole purpose of having the Swan Valley scheme in place is about protection of viticulture. And therefore, we have an obligation to make sure that we are considering that. I would say that the issue around the traffic is well understood, and it was more so about understanding the extent and nature of the expansion, which the master plan does help with. The chair has covered off on one particular item, being the childcare centre. I didn't want to understand, because it's got potential commercial development land, and again, understanding that we're not bound by this plan, but just wanting to understand the underlying intent that sort of sits behind that, because obviously it does help inform the decision.
I'll start, and then maybe Ray can carry on. With our number one urgency is traffic, car park, and bus route. So the minute the land is procured, that will be put in place. A car park, and then hopefully we can get a road in place as well. There would, if anything else happens, Ray, maybe you'd like to add here, it would certainly not be a separate business to the current college operations.
If I can just add to that, I think maybe the version that you may have made reference to future commercial, the latest iteration, because there has been multiple iterations as we've gone, specifies it as future school land use development area.
Okay,
that's the latest version.
Just wanting to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that is very helpful. Thank you. Could I also ask, in relation to the extent of land being sought? So, as I understand it, I understand the car parking component, but there it would appear to be like obviously a road connection through. So that is part of obviously the key objectives of the particular amendment. Is that correct? Thank you.
Yeah. That's essential. You can't have the extension of the school without the road, the whole basis of this. And you may ask the question, no one asked it, that why would we would be interested in actually having a road go through there, which will become a public road, because that's what will happen. What that allows us actually is to open up the back part of our property to, because one of the issues we're dealing with in the Swan out here is about viticulture. Just bear with us. You will be receiving, well, hopefully Mark will pass it on, I'll wear quickly another hat as chairman of the Swan Valley Strategy Leadership Group, that we've been doing a detailed report on the economic viability of viticulture in the Swan Valley. Now, the issue we're dealing with here is, as I mentioned, both industries are under pressure for various reasons. Climate change, water, market forces, demographics, etc. What we've been looking to do, because we have a very large parcel and we're very heavily committed to the valley, we have replanted on our best soil more vineyard than the rest of the whole Swan Valley combined, which mainly Italian and Spanish varieties, more suited to the warmer climates. But they are more boutique varieties. You wouldn't even, Montepulciano, Anise, Barbera, you probably wouldn't even, but they are.
Oh, believe me, wine and me are very close.
Okay. So they're never going to be really commercial varieties. So, but we also got to look at the case of, as an example, as I said, driving into the place, on the left-hand side, we've got Bordello there, where there is literally no market. We use our for we actually convert it like into grape spirit for gin and vodka. It would be cheaper for us to actually buy grape spirit from Tara from South Australia. We also, if anyone's been to Nicola, you'll see we've got a beautiful white chapel in amongst a nice little Chardonnay patch. Well, that Chardonnay is pretty poor quality. We actually use, but the white chapel has been the best thing we've done from a marketing point of view for this. The grapes of that gets used for cooking wine. We actually have to put salt in it, and we actually sold off as cooking wine in another part of our business in European foods. So a lot of the vineyards in a lot of cases are there for aesthetics because they're the hook to get people there. We have to find other sources of income to subsidise the actual running of the vineyard and winery, because since we've taken it over, we knew it when we took it over, it was a rundown place. Operating losses on the vineyard winery now tackle over 5 million in the last 6 years. We hope to get close to break even this year on it. But one of the things we're looking at the moment, the land's actually just growing hay for the local equine community. But we see an opportunity, and if you've read the element report on, accommodation is crucial. So we see an opportunity of bringing things like luxury camping to the back part of that area. And this opens up that country to allow us to do that. Because it's desperately, because we've got to find other sources of income to basically subsidise the vineyard operations.
No, absolutely. And I do understand in terms of creating a more robust road network. That is,
yeah. Thanks, Graham. Is there any other questions? Questions? Okay, thank you very much for your deputation today. Much appreciated.
Item agenda, which is and amendment number 1 and amendment number 7, welcoming Rob and Michael Hodge via Zoom this morning. Good morning, Ross. You're
Good
okay?
morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
And thank you. Michael is also on the screen. We don't have Michael's video turned on, but Michael, if you do wish to participate in the meeting this morning, I would ask that you turn your video on so the members may see you on the screen, but otherwise we can proceed with just audio only if Ross is leading the deputation this morning.
Can you hear me at all?
And thank you, Michael. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I'm technologically illiterate, so I may struggle just to get myself on video.
That's fine. If Ross is leading the deputation, we can just progress on that basis. So over to you when you're ready, Ross. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And please bear with me if there's any issue with me understanding, because there's quite a severe echo coming through, which sounds like it might be an issue at my end. But I shall proceed. Thank you for the time this morning. We act for the owners of Mandoon Estate in support of this deputation, and I see we now have Michael Hodgkin from Michael Hodgkin Consulting, and thank the chair for accommodating the circulation of his submission yesterday, and confirming earlier that the members had received and had a chance to go through it, which means I won't go through all the details in as much detail as set out in those submissions. Chair, committee members, it's been only a year since I was here in front of this committee speaking to you on the proposal to hold events at Sandalford Wines. This committee resolved at the time to grant a time-limited approval so that the approval could be monitored over a period of 3.5 years, at which time the impacts from events held can be re-evaluated. So we were quite surprised to see, just a year in, this proposal come in now, seeking to effectively lift the time limitation and grant a permanent approval to hold 10 events per year. The proposal is, as was explained in Michael's submission, a collateral attack on last year's resolution. What's more, the current approval has not been in place for long enough to demonstrate that large events won't impact access to Mandoon Estate and neighbouring businesses. To our knowledge, there's been just 2 events held since the approval was granted, which is not near enough evidence to show that a permanent approval is warranted. There is also the matter of the major intersection upgrades that are planned by Main Roads. Now, last year, Main Roads asked for, and this committee granted, a time-limited approval to allow for the change in traffic conditions to be assessed and considered by Main Roads. And nothing in the officer's report confirms that Main Roads now supports the removal of the time limitation. There are other matters in our submission, and they include the loss of parking areas and access routes to Main Roads, conditions that maintain access to Mandoon Estate included in the last approval have been removed. As set out in Michael's submission, this is a complex and not a standard scheme amendment. The size and the frequency of events can't be said to be keeping in with the scheme objectives and the objectives of the Swan Valley Planning Act. And there are, of course, much better venues for regular events attracting large crowds in areas with far better access to public transport, and HBF Park is one example of that. This committee, exercising its functions under the Planning Development Act and the Swan Valley Planning Act, is obligated to apply orderly and proper planning and considering the objects of both of these acts. And we say the scheme amendment falls short on these matters and it shouldn't be adopted. Thank you. I'd be pleased to answer any questions, as would Michael.
Thanks very much, Ross. It's Emma here, and thank you for your deputation today. Members, are there any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. And Ross, you can take the submissions as being read, but I would like to ask, in terms of, and again, linked to a previous submission made, the notion obviously of diversification of the wineries is obviously pretty much established as obviously being part of the future. Do you understand the drive for it? And could I ask whether this is an issue of in principle or whether this is about issues of detail and timing?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Heron. The Swan Valley Planning Act provides some objectives around things such as maintaining the rural character and discouraging land uses incompatible with the rural character. And the Act also applies those same principles to tourism and hospitality uses. So there is an acknowledgement in the Act that tourism and hospitality uses can be considered, but they are subject to those issues around rural character. The second matter you raised, I won't repeat the concerns that we had and expressed to this committee last year, that there were conditions imposed around maintaining access to Mandoon Estate through traffic management measures. But it doesn't really address the fact that the last approval has been in place for 14 months. There just is not enough time to judge the impacts, in our view.
Thank you.
Members, any questions? No, thank you very much. I have a question for Michael. Michael, in your submission, you talk about, you take issue with the incidental use. Would you like to elaborate on that for the committee?
Yes, this is tied in with the collateral attack argument. Can I perhaps explain what that concept means? The committee might be assisted. The tribunal, the State Administrative Tribunal, dealt with collateral attacks on administrative decisions in a case called Erugin, ERUJIN, and West Australian Planning Commission, which you can find at 2010 WASAT 29. Paragraph 6 and 64 are the main two paragraphs. Basically, in that case, the WAPC had imposed two conditions on a development approval, and then a short time later, another application was made to remove those two conditions. And the tribunal said that the second application was trying to remove a decision that had been made without any change in circumstances. So that was what it was described as a collateral attack, which amounted to an abusive process. That's a legal term which shouldn't be seen as pejorative. The second application in that case was dismissed by the tribunal because it was an abusive process, and it said you can't go attacking a decision that we've just made when there's been no change in circumstances to justify a change. So last year, when the development approval was granted, subject to the capped time, the committee obviously contemplated that if that was to extend, then there'd be another application for development approval. What this zoning amendment seeks is to describe that use as an additional use which is ancillary to the vineyard. And if it's ancillary, you don't need development approval because it's just part and parcel of the existing approval. And that is acknowledged in the officer's report because it says we won't need to keep making applications for development approval, because one of the benefits that the proponents sought from the rezoning was certainty, so that they knew that they had an uncapped development approval for all time for 10 concerts every year. So that's what, and the effect of an ancillary use is that basically you don't need to seek development approval. Hopefully it can be understood why the tribunal in Erugin said you can't do that. You can't effectively attempt to change a decision that was made before without exercise, when there's no change in circumstances. And you had forms of relief. If you didn't like the condition, you could have appealed it. And even now you can apply to vary the condition or vary the approval if there's been a change of circumstances. But here, there is no explanation of any alteration in circumstance that warrant effectively a removal of a condition that had been imposed 14 months ago.
Thank you, Michael. I think you've answered the question. Members, any further questions? Thank you very much for your deputation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next deputation this morning, also on item 3.2 on the agenda, we're welcoming Claire McLean and Grant Brinklow to the table. Thank you.
Morning. Good morning, Chair, committee members and staff. I am presenting today on this item on behalf of Sandalford Wines and Trafalgar Investments Proprietary Limited, which are companies that form part of the Brendeville Group. Yes, and Grant Brinklow, the CEO of Sandalford Wines, is here today, and he is also available to respond to any questions. So we are here in support of the officer recommendation to initiate amendment number 7 to the Swan Valley Planning Scheme number 1. Now, this seeks to formalise the incidental use of concerts held at Sandalford. It's a use that has been successfully operating for over 20 years now, with more than 80 concerts having been held since 2002. These events have consistently proven to be compatible with the location, and future road upgrades will not affect the land's suitability for this use. Traffic is managed through traffic management plans, which are approved by Main Roads before each event. Main Roads reviews the plan in consideration of the specifics for that particular event, and that includes such matters as road access, arrival and departure times, the number of patrons utilising bus services, and also the anticipated volumes of traffic. Without that traffic management approval, a concert cannot proceed. So now this amendment proposal, what it does is it seeks to remove the need for further repeated planning applications for this use to achieve the same outcome. It will maintain the existing controls by embedding into the scheme the same conditions attached to the previous 4 time-limited planning approvals that have been granted over the last 20 years. It will ensure continued oversight by the relevant agencies, including Main Roads and the City of Swan. So just briefly, I just wanted to respond to the submission from Mandoon, and I have 4 statements just to make on that. Firstly, the current approval is not a trial of the land use. This land use is well established and it is fully compliant with the planning framework, and that which we say aligns with the standard style of amendment rather than the complex. Secondly, the initiation of the amendment proposal does not invalidate the existing planning approval that remains in place. Main Roads will be formally consulted during the amendment process through correct procedure, and it's not appropriate for us to speculate at this time on its position when it hasn't even seen the proposal yet. And finally, Sandalford has no objection to including that new condition relating to Mandoon, which was added to the last approval that was issued. So in conclusion, this amendment is really the next practical and necessary step to recognise and support a proven and culturally significant land use in the Swan Valley. It will ensure continued regulation while also streamlining planning process. So on that basis, we are respectfully seeking the support of the committee in initiating this amendment proposal and allowing it to proceed to the referral process and also the formal advertising. So thank you for the opportunity to present, and we'd welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Claire and Grant. Members, any questions?
Yeah. Through the chair, I would just, and again, further to the point that was made about from a legal perspective, can I just confirm that, so from your perspective, there would be no legal limitations in terms of the overlap of the 2 processes?
No. I mean, this amendment proposal, we know how long they run for. We are simply seeking to initiate it. It wasn't done in any way as a collateral attack on the current approval. It was in fact discussed back in 2023, and due to the time with the time limit approval previous was going to lapse, we couldn't just run an amendment proposal at that time. We had to run them both. So we actually had an amendment lodged shortly after the last planning approval, which waited until and didn't proceed because we needed to address the last concerns and run that process. And it was updated in April 2025 and has now been presented to you. So it was never done by any means to remove any current valid approval that Sandalford currently operates in accordance with.
If I may, just to follow, and can I confirm that the intention under this amendment is that you would maintain the events in a format and form consistent with what has been traditionally undertaken there?
Yes, absolutely, Grant, if you want to, that's absolutely the intention.
Commissioner, through the chair, yes, short answer, we're not looking to change any of the pre-existing arrangements. We're looking to ensure that there is certainty moving forward and without the need for future development applications. I think Claire spoke to 4 previous applications covering the various time cap approval. So no change.
Claire, perhaps a question for you. I note that the events have been happening for a very, very long period of time, and take the point about this wasn't being a trial, so that would put that to one side. But in relation to the previous decision of the committee, it was around the Reid Highway upgrade and the Harris Road access way. That was, Main Roads specifically requested the 3-year horizon on that while the planning for that upgrade is undertaken. What I wanted to ask you though is the choice of a scheme amendment as opposed to coming back to the committee once that planning has been completed and then seeking a permanent approval. There's a lot of detail that will be sitting in the scheme. So in terms of flexibility moving forward, if things change in the future, having to then go through a scheme amendment to deal with significant detail, is that something that you've considered in terms of choosing this pathway?
Yes, we have, and the last 20 years have run in accordance with the same conditions of approval. There's no intention to change those, that structural form and the list of conditions that are proposed to be included in the additional use. Are there, I can imagine.
No, and if I may, just to take up Claire's point, we've worked very collaboratively with Main Roads around their East Link position and the West Swan Road Reid Highway crossovers, which is due to commence in 2028. And the arrangements, the finalised design includes connectivity between Harris Road and West Swan Road. So land that is currently Crown land sitting between Sanford, Harris Road, Reid Highway and West Swan Road will be converted to an extension of Harris Road through to West Swan Road, which will provide direct connectivity into Sanford to create a northern entrance. Right now, we have ongoing lease position with Main Roads around that land, but that will be converted to an improved position moving forward.
I think just on that, it's important to note that with that last planning application and the previous ones, we include the Main Roads own property of the leased land, which is lot 202. And so from Main Roads, we're saying, oh, look, if we need to use that part for lay down that particular land, we might need to relook at it. And we say it's absolutely not required as an essential component of running the concerts. There's the capacity for 8,000 on the land owned and operated by Statutory, and it is used now, and we do, that is part of the current planning approval, but that won't interfere with the ability for the land to be used.
If I may, again, just to pick up from Claire's comments there, just to reiterate, we have existing car parking space for in excess of 8,000 cars on the total Sanford Prentable Group land holding there. So the removal of the lease arrangements won't diminish that, not at all. We will maintain at least that, which is greater than the number that was originally required, as I recall, by the City of Swan back in 2014 around the number of bays available to park to cater for up to 16,000 capacity.
Thank you. Members, any further questions?
I've got some questions for the
Nino?
officers, but is that
We will have that opportunity.
when the item is
Yes, that's
discussed?
right.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Members, that concludes our deputations today, and we haven't received any deputations. So we'll now move on to consideration of the 2 items before us today. So the first item is 3.1, the Swan Valley Planning Scheme number 1, amendment number 7, resolution to initiate. This is in relation to the Swan Christian College site. So we welcome the attending officers Michaela Trellin, Andrew Cook and Mark Zusbo. Mark, is Michaela joining us today?
No, unfortunately, Madam Chair. Both officers are on leave at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Well, welcome Andrew and Mark on this item. Do you wish to speak to the item before we have questions?
And look, thank you, Madam Chair. Not a great deal in addition to the report to say. I think the deputations have certainly covered those issues around the amendment for the expansion of the school, being an existing long-term user of the property and member of the Swan Valley community, and then the benefits from the potential creation of the additional traffic road to take some of the stacking and buses off of Great Northern Highway and bring them down that new road off Dale Road. As you'll see in the report, we have attempted to look at it in a balanced manner to try to balance it against the aims and objectives of the scheme, which seek to protect the agricultural uses. You'll see the submission and the deputation talks about the loss of some of that land that has previously been used for viticulture operations, but hasn't for the last, I think, year or so. And the fact that it does form a small component of a very large property there. So at the end of the day, it was a balanced assessment, and we think that we can support it. And we don't think it sets an undesirable precedent because of the very specific characteristics of the proposal.
Thank you very much, Mark. Members, questions for Mark or Andrew? No questions? Oh yes, go ahead, Commissioner Aaron.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report, and the additional information did definitely assist in providing understanding. Clearly, this is an area where trying to balance the strategic objectives with practical outcomes. I am mindful with the land capability for wine grapes, which is included in the report, which clearly seems to contradict, if you like, some of the comments made. Is there some basis in which that might be reviewed, or do we just accept the fact that it is valid grape country, it's just that the context is the driver here?
Yes, thank you for the question. Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, I think I've tried to make that as clear in the report as possible, and that regardless of the fact that it is no longer used for vines, it could be used for vines or some other form of agricultural use. But in this assessment, we haven't given a great deal of weight to the agricultural potential productivity of that land. We've said that it has been outweighed by these other issues, being the need for the school to expand, the potential benefits of the traffic improvement, and the fact there really isn't much else for the school to go. They're kind of a bit hamstrung by they can't go to the south, they can't go to the west. The only expansion really is to the north.
Thank you, members. Are there any further questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move to consideration of the item then, and we have a recommendation before us. Is there a mover and seconder? That's moved by Member Hurt, seconded by Member Zanino. Do you wish to speak to the item, Member Hurt?
Thank you everyone for your deputations and report. I'm a long member of living in the Swan Valley. You can see how the traffic has built up. You know, in fact, I go nearly 3/4 an hour out of my way, so I don't go back and forth on Great Northern Highway at school times. That traffic impacts other businesses, and there certainly has an economic loss because people cannot move on the road. In fact, it comes to a standstill. Main roads have just put down the speed limits to 75. A lot of people are upset by that, and I say, why are you upset? We sometimes sit there for half an hour. We might as well turn off our engines. I fully support the school. Is not going anywhere. It's a high level reputation. It can benefit the whole region, quite a long way. In country are going down into the school as well. This should have happened a long time ago, as far as I can see. When Mr. statute's family's property. They're not using that land at present. If they wanted to turn around and use it, they could turn around and put any tourism, other venue or another type of commercial activity on that land that will only benefit themselves. This way, for myself, my own personal view, it's a really generous offer. It benefits not only the school, the family, but it actually benefits considerably the whole of the community. So in that reason, I actually support that.
Thanks very much for your comments, Member Hurt. Member Zanino, do you wish to add anything?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that, well, being a lifelong resident of the Swan Valley and being a lifelong grape grower, I can verify a lot of the issues that have been mentioned. With the traffic congestion, I can verify that that is a major concern to the whole locality. It does hold up because in the mornings, especially, the traffic will bank up to 5 kilometres and it just doesn't move. Also in the afternoon, there's a huge problem with the picking up of students, because you've got cars parked everywhere on the road verges. There's been numerous complaints to the City of Swan with regards to safety issues, and this is something that needs to be, resolved quickly. I know for a fact that the main roads have been looking at different options for the past decade, but up to now, there's really been no major changes. And I think that having this put in place is going to be a major change, which is going to go a long way to rectifying the problem. When it comes to viticulture, I mean, there's been mention of priority land for agricultural purposes. I mean, growing grapes, at the end of the day, you can grow grapes anywhere. The question is the viability. Is it viable? Because you can grow grapes in very arid soil, but the viability is going to be virtually zero because you're not going to make a financial profit out of growing grapes in that sort of soil, but you can grow it. So that's the issue that needs to be looked at, is the viability. If something is financially viable, then obviously it's going to be pursued and people will want to do it because they're going to get a return. If it's not, then it won't. But when you look at this in the context of the property, this is a very large property in the context of the Swan Valley. And this is a very small proportion. And I think one of the major reasons by the owners of the property to sell the land to the school was probably that it's going to go a long way in resolving a lot of the issues. And also it's going to be beneficial in the long run for their future plans. So I think that what's being proposed is very sensible and probably should have been put in place a long time ago. So I fully support it.
Thank you very much, Member Zanino. Members, are there any other comments? Thank you very much, Commissioner Herron.
Taking on board all the points, and I was particularly mindful. I was clearly previously had asked for it to be referred back because I felt that we needed to have more information, given the foundation of the Act and the preservation of intruding uses into the prime agricultural area is the foundation of the entire scheme. Therefore, it is balancing those drivers against also ensuring practical outcome for existing users. On balance and following the additional information provided, I feel comfortable that the proposal, although acknowledging the fact that it may not align with some of the strategic objectives in the context of both the traffic and the existing use of the school, it is an appropriate extension of that existing use, and on that basis I support it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Herron. Any further comments? Probably just thank you all. Very much appreciate the deliberations today and agree with the comments that have been put forward. Just probably to add from a perspective of reasons for decision, I have been satisfied by Graham Ukip's deputation in relation to the productivity of this portion of the site in question, and I take that and that forms part of my decision making. I think that this has been raised by Mark that in terms of school expansion, it really must happen to the north. So I think that's another important factor in consideration. And just the commentary that has already been provided in relation to the extent of the impact of the traffic issue, not only for the surrounding community, but in relation to RAC raising this as one of the, through its risky road survey as being one of the worst in the state. I think that to have this come as part of this solution, that's really concerning when you consider that there's school children involved. So I think this is also a key consideration and a great benefit from this amendment. So happy to support it. Is there not being any other discussion? Any dissent to the motion? That is carried. Thank you all. We'll move to our second item for today, which is the Swan Valley Planning Scheme Amendment number 10. This is certification to advertise, and this is in relation to Sandalwood and their request for additional use. Mark and Andrew, any comments to make after hearing the deputations today?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Probably just some things to flag is that we have heard the condition that was previously imposed by the committee when dealing with the development application some 13 months ago was the condition in relation to Mandoon. So I think that's something which has come up and we would need to address, but also just interested in your comments in relation to other matters raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I will just confirm a couple of things that have been raised there. The amendment itself was submitted prior to the DA. The reason that an amendment was requested was that the Commission or the Department's position has been with any major developments or something of this nature was that the scheme amendment process allowed a broader advertising and gave final decision to the Minister for those types of major changes to the Swan Valley. The DA had to come in directly after because of the time limit. We weren't probably going to be able to have the amendment finished in time, and there was a concert coming up that needed to be dealt with very quickly. So there was a little bit of a time there. Now, the time limit that the committee put on at the time and that was considered was justified on Main Road's advice that they hadn't completed their designs and weren't sure what impacts would be. Now, recent discussions with Main Roads is that the final designs may have in fact been completed and adopted, and we said, can we send you this amendment for discussion? They said, has it been initiated? We said no. They said no. Send it to us when it's been initiated, and then we can have some further discussion if required, and we can have a look at it. So in assessing the amendment, we've looked at the potential for it to obviously go out for advertising, be referred to other agencies and so forth. So one of the issues that condition was raised, we've inadvertently cut and pasted. We thought we'd put the right one in, which we had, but we've put it in the wrong version that's been uploaded into the agenda, which was the condition that specifically related to consideration of Mandoon in that final traffic design and the management plans. Now,
just at this junction, perhaps Andrew, if you have that wording available, we could send that to Commission support so they can have that available to members if we need it.
Oh, sorry,
the Mandoon amendment.
Oh, the Mandoon condition. Yes, no, I'd have to bring that up from the previous one. So I'd also, and I would also point out, yes, there has been 3 concert events since that last approval was given. We even had an email, we were included in the emails from Mandoon to Sandalford, thanking them for the last one. Well, they were positively happy with it, and said that there was limited impact on their operations on the day of the last concert. So our position has been that 20 years worth of these concerts going on, having to go through this process of a large DA every 5 years, it was our recommendation to the proponent that they go through a scheme amendment to embed this in the scheme, which I think it has the benefit of also being in the scheme so other people can see that that is a permanent approval. With a DA, people don't know that that is potentially something that is approved on that land unless they're very cognizant of the fact that there is an approved DA. But having it in the scheme allows everyone to know it's there. It allows us to put conditions on it. The process at the moment is quite detailed. We support the land use. The land use is there. The management of the traffic and all the other issues is dealt with on a event by event basis through the City of Swan, main roads and the police, WA, to ensure that all those other issues beyond whether the land use is appropriate or not, and they cannot go ahead with an event without those things being ticked off each and every time. That seems to have worked quite well in the past, up until now, and the last couple of events even more so, with a little bit of negotiation and discussions between Mandoon and Sandalford. The department has been invited to those meetings where Mandoon have also been invited to discuss all of the issues around the event management as well. So we have set forth from early discussions on requiring a scheme amendment, and that's why this is for the committee to consider now.
Thank you, Mark. Just would value your views on the deputy on behalf of Mandoon Estate has put to us that this is not orderly and proper planning, given that the last decision of the committee was based on a time limited approval because we were waiting on the design outcome for Reid Highway and the impact on Harris Road. I note that Main Roads is saying we'll provide you with our referral feedback once it's advertised, but given that this was a pivotal part of the previous development application, I'm just questioning why they would not provide that information up front. We've heard through the deputation today from Mr. Grant Brinklow that there is potentially a solution which is really quite beneficial and has less impact on Mandoon. Would it not be preferable to have that as part of the advertising process so that that could be presented to the community as part of this scheme amendment proposal?
Madam Chair, yeah, perhaps we could go back to Main Roads and ask for that information and say that it would be, yes, beneficial for it to be included in the advertised documents. Just not sure if they're willing to release that information for public view yet, but we could ask the questions.
Members, over to you for questions. Charlie, you mentioned that you had some questions.
I've got a couple of questions. A couple have already been answered. This is an application purely to approve it to go out to public comment. So once this goes out for public comment, if there's more submissions, say, against it rather than for it, this obviously would have to come back to this committee. So what would be as a planning officer, what would your recommendation be in that circumstance?
For you, Madam Chair, yes, to the member, the process, once advertising has commenced, the final decision on the amendment rests with the Minister. The application would come back to the committee following advertising with a recommendation and assessment of any submissions made for the committee to make a recommendation to the minister of whether he should grant final approval to the amendment or not.
Right.
So that is allowing for that wider advertising and referral to agencies prior to the committee making a final recommendation to the minister.
And I think one of the concerns probably related to Mandoon would be that once this is approved, if it's approved, then conditions are not going to be adhered to. Can conditions be amended once this has been approved, if it is approved?
Again, Madam Chair, the conditions would be going into the scheme, so a scheme amendment would have to be modified. It is noted that the issues that could come up, noise issues, are dealt with by the City of Swan through the Environmental and Health Acts. The traffic issues can be assessed after each event by Main Roads and by Police WA. So the actual way that the concerts and the event management would occur can be modified, but it would take a scheme amendment to amend the conditions that we would be inserting into the scheme.
So I think what Mike is correctly saying is that anything to specifically amend a scheme condition, that would need a scheme amendment. But the scheme acts as an umbrella, and I suppose the detail, event management, for instance, that's the approval of the scheme amendment, if that occurs, would not rule out the fact that you still need an event management plan to you know, the traffic, all of that detail will be in an event management plan. You still need approval to do that. So, yeah, if that helps.
So, for example, Charlie, condition 7.2 says an event management plan detailing site and off-site security, card control, fire safety, emergency access, a noise management plan to be prepared by a suitable qualified engineer. So it does have those sort of elements.
And is enforceable.
Requiring a plan which is enforceable. Members, other questions? Let's go ahead.
Thank you. And just very briefly, and further to some of the submission that was made in relation to that matter, my take on it would be that the example that was identified would be fundamentally different, given that this is not a DA, this is an amendment. Therefore, it is not reducing the impact of the approval, and that would still stand. I just wanted to confirm that that would be your view as well.
Yes, Commissioner, that's my view. I also considered, after reading that there is also the opportunity for that original approval to be modified or amended prior to the scheme amendment, if initiated, being formally gazetted.
Thank you. Sorry, through the chair, and do we have that wording for the Mandoon condition?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Fantastic. That covers me.
Thank you. Look, I have a couple of other questions. I'm just really querying whether we do need to have this sitting in the scheme, whereas we could actually seek an update from Main Roads and then move to deal with the development application on a permanent basis. I'm concerned about the level of detail that's being held in a scheme and the need to then do a scheme amendment. I do think that it would be useful to go back to Main Roads, given that that was the permanent, that reason for the temporary approval, and just in terms of presenting, way forward in terms of advertising something without having that information. So I'm interested in your views on that. I think you have addressed that. And then in terms of the conditions, if we are to proceed with a scheme amendment, whether we need to have the extent of conditions laid out like this, or whether it could refer to a management plan, which could then detail some of these, it could talk to some of these issues that are detailed in a management plan, which then can be dealt with more flexibly if the need arises. Because the idea of a scheme amendment to amend, for example, the amount of time a toilet can remain on site does seem a bit extreme.
Yes, certainly, Madam Chair. There may be some benefit in going back to main roads and asking them again for whether that information would be available and whether they're willing for that to come out at this stage. So that's certainly something that could be considered. The conditions as they stand now, in my opinion, do ask for that other information. So that other information can be modified and changed. Those conditions are the same as the DA approval we have now, that one that was inadvertently left off. So I don't think the conditions that would go into the scheme would necessarily need modification unless something quite significantly changed.
Okay, all right. Members, any further questions? Or we're happy to move to deal with the item?
Just one question of clarification. Because I'm on the fence at the moment. Are there any detrimental ramifications if this item was to be deferred till we get further information or clarification and it be brought back to the next committee meeting?
In my view, no, because the existing development approval runs through to 2027. So it would be an opportunity to seek advice from Main Roads and for this to return to the next meeting.
I'd like to move that it be deferred.
Right, can I just ask a question
Yeah,
first?
sure.
Because again, my understanding, and I just wanted to clarify, the driver for the scheme amendment process, because then that was one of the things in my mind in terms of why the scheme amendment process. My understanding from your response previously was that it's more about awareness in terms of people moving into the area, that there is an overt awareness as to the use and nature of use. That is the driver for the amendment versus a DA, or is it? I'm just trying to understand the issue of the main roads information factor, which is frustrating in itself, versus the, the intent behind the amendment pathways.
Yes, Commissioner, through you, Madam Chair. That is one of the components of the reasoning. When I came on board to the Swan Valley team, the director at the time said, this has been the process that has been sort of agreed, that the scheme was quite a no change scheme, and that any major changes or major developments that would come along would be through the scheme amendment process to allow that broader advertising and for the final decision to lie with the minister through that change of the scheme. So there was a combination of reasons around why the scheme amendment process would be used. And we have continued to be consistent with that. As you would have heard Mr. Ukic talking about amendment that he's going to be making for the broader thing. Sandalford also are looking at a broader amendment to do other things on their side as well. That individually could be done as DAs, but together over a long period of time do propose quite significant changes to how things in the Valley have been considered in the past. So rather than, one small incidental use going into a site, there's going to be multiple proposed over each site. And I think there's a component there of long-term, just a little bit of, so they're aware and have that principle in place that they can do these things in the long term.
Thank you.
Sorry, put that better.
Look, I think that just going out with a scheme amendment at the same time of having an approved DA on the basis of time limit due to further information being required from Main Roads, I think that will just raise issues during consultation. We've had issues raised by Mandoon about that, so I think that it would be better to resolve that in advance of going out for public advertising, to actually have that information available to us. So I'm just putting that back as a, I guess, a request in terms of whether we can seek that information from Main Roads. I'm happy to approach them if that helps.
Certainly, if the committee is of the mind to do that, we're happy to facilitate that for sure.
Thank you. Well, look, we do have options. We've got a recommendation before us. We do have the Mandoon condition available to be added to the recommendation from the officers, but we also have had a discussion about whether this is deferred to seek additional information from Main Road. So I'll open it up to members now to put a way forward for discussion, although we can't discuss a deferral motion.
Personally, as I said, you know, I understand where Sandalfords are coming from. I'd like to support them because they, you know, do run a tight ship and, you know, they're one of the major contributors in the Swan Valley. But, you know, there's always also these unanswered questions. So personally, I'd like to defer it at this point and refer it back to a future date once we have further clarification on questions and issues.
Okay, so we've had a deferral motion moved. Is there a seconder for the deferral motion? That's seconded by member Hurt. Is that supported by members? I'm happy to support the deferral. Yep, and but can I just be clear in moving this deferral, if we could please ask for the report to come to the next Swan Valley Planning Committee, and if it's on the basis of seeking further information from Main Roads on the Reed Highway upgrade and how that will affect the Harris Road access.
Madam Chair, the next meeting, it might be too tight with the agenda timeframes to get Main Roads to respond.
Okay, well, at the earliest opportunity. Thank you. So is everyone happy to support that, or is there additional information that you would like to see?
Sorry, it was just a bit in terms of that additional information. I think it's part of that. It would be worthwhile to perhaps also include some information around the principle that you were talking about there in terms of other uses, because I think that whatever we decide here, as I sort of say, there's the Main Roads component, which I think is quite clear in terms of getting information. And then there's the other one in terms of the philosophical position about amendment versus development to ensure that we have a consistency of approach. So if we could get some background information about the other sites which are looking to have a similar approach taken would be useful.
So yeah, I think that we'd like to have a bit more of a discussion about what goes into the scheme versus what comes through as a development application. So that's a broader discussion, but particular to this matter, further rationale for the use of the scheme as opposed to a development application coming from. Okay, so is everybody happy with that? We're happy to defer. I think that was unanimous, so thank you. Apologies to take a bit more time, but we think it's important to iron this out given that we've had that time limited approval on the basis of Main Roads design work on Roe Highway. All right, thank you members. That concludes our 2 items for today. We don't have any confidential items, but we do have the opportunity to have urgent or other business. Before going into confidential, can I just ask if anyone did have other items that they wanted to raise? We're happy to conclude the meeting here. For today, we do have SPC waiting. All right, well, thank you, appreciate that. So we don't then have any urgent business to raise in confidential. So I will thank you all for your attendance and your deliberations today and close the meeting at 10.